Are you ready for the world's greatest mysteries, dark secrets, paranormal events, and unsolved cases? The Amityville Haunting, a house with a bloody past, the Dyatlov Pass Incident, lives lost in the cold, unexplained remains, Skinwalker Ranch, UFOs, unknown creatures, and terrifying experiences, reality or legend. Join Mind Globe on a journey into the unknown.
The real story behind the Amityville horror house situated stood on the front lawn playing a bugle at 3 a.m. On another occasion, someone left human excrement on the porch. Around the holidays, the family's decorations were stolen. The home's horror house reputation even followed 14-year-old Joyce Cromartie to school, where classmates harassed her and asked repeatedly if she'd seen any ghosts since moving in. But the Cromarties said they hadn't experienced anything paranormal there by December of 1978. The constant barrage of visitors proved to be too much for the family. Ocean Avenue was littered with empty beer bottles, popcorn boxes, and other trash left behind by looky-loos whose disrespect applied to every house and homeowner on the street. As the crowds grew larger, extra police details were hired and paid them overtime, a costly expense for a small village like Amityville. Though public officials had considered ways to monetize the crowds, like running bus tours or charging admission to see the house, none of these ideas were approved. Out of respect for the DeFeo family, having given up on the idea of selling the house, the Cromarties eventually moved back in. Fighting to defend the home's reputation, they accepted speaking engagements throughout the New York area where they could share the real history of the house. In February of 1982, they reached a settlement with the publishing company to have the subtitle A True Story removed from all future printings of the book. When the Cromarties did finally sell the house in August of 1987, things had quieted down significantly. But new interest spiked every time the movie played on TV. According to Jim, it was on the night the house sold to longtime Amityville residents Peter and Jean O'Neill. The O'Neills purchased the home for $325,000 and swapped out the now infamous eye windows for square ones. They also filled in the in-ground pool.
Dyatlov Pass Incident. The Dyatlov Pass Incident refers to the mysterious deaths of 9 skiers in the Ural Mountains on the night of February 2, 1959. The event took place on the eastern side of Koletsayako Mountain, in the area that later became known as Dyatlov Pass, named after the group's leader, Igor Alek. Investigators determined that on the night of the incident, the skiers inexplicably tore their tents from the inside and fled into the extreme cold of -30 degrees Celsius with heavy snowfall. Some even barefoot. Among the bodies found, 2 had skull fractures, while 2 others had broken ribs. This case remains unsolved, and numerous theories have emerged ranging from secret Soviet military experiments to supernatural forces and unexplained natural phenomena. The group planned to travel to Mount Otorten in the northern Ural Mountains. Led by Igor Dyatlov, the team consisted of 8 men and 2 women, most of whom were graduates of the Ural Technical University. Igor Dyatlov, group leader, born January 12, 1937. Ludmila Dubinina, born May 12, 1938. Alexander born November 16, 1934. Rustem, born January 11, 1936. Yuri Kribonishenko, born February 7, 1935. Yuri Doroshenko, born January 29, 1938. Nikolai Thibaut Brignoles, born July 5. Semyon Zolotaryov, born February 2, 1921. Yuri Yudin, born July 19, 1937. Died April 27, 2013 on January 25. The group arrived in Ivdel by train and continued to Vizyaj by bus. The 10th member, Yuri Hudin, had to abandon the journey due to a leg injury and illness in Vizyaj and returned home. January 27th was the last date the group was seen alive. Their cameras and diaries were later found at their campsite. According to Yuri Yudin, Dyatlov feared losing sight of the summit due to the dense forest. Instead of camping in the forest to protect themselves from the snowstorm, they set up camp in an open area. As part of their travel plan, the group was expected to return to Vizyaj by February 12th and sent a telegram to the sports club. However, Dyatlov had told Yudin that there could be a delay, so no one worried about the group for the next few days. When no news came from them, search efforts began with volunteers, later joined by police and the military using helicopters. On February 26th, the rescue team found the abandoned and heavily damaged tent. Mikhail Saravin, who discovered the tent, noted that it was torn and covered in snow, but the group had left their belongings and shoes inside. Investigators later confirmed that the tent had been ripped from the inside. Footprints belonging to 9 people, some wearing only socks, others barefoot or with a single shoe led toward the forest. About 500 meters away, the tracks were covered by snow. At the edge of the forest, under a cedar tree, burned wood and the bodies of Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko were found. Both were dressed only in their underwear and socks. The branches of the cedar tree, 5 meters above ground, were broken, suggesting that the two had climbed up possibly to look for the campsite or other group members. Between the cedar tree and the camp, investigators found 3 more bodies: Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem. The researchers concluded that these individuals had died while trying to return to the camp. Their bodies were discovered at distances of 300, 480, and 630 meters from the cedar tree. It took over 2 months to find the remaining 4 bodies. When the snow melted, Zolotarev and Krivonishenko were found lying on their backs in a riverbed, embracing each other. Dubinina was discovered with her chest pressed against rocks. These victims were dressed more warmly than the other. Zolotarev was wearing Dubinina's fur coat and hat, while Dubinina had put on Krivonishenko's wool pants. The first 5 bodies found Yuri Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin were determined to have died from hypothermia. Slobodin had a skull fracture. Researchers noted that this fracture was severe enough to cause unconsciousness, but not fatal on its own. It is believed that Slobodin was knocked out by an unknown force and later froze to death. The remaining 4 bodies appear to have died from traumatic injuries. Thibobrianolis had a fractured skull. Dubinina and Zolotarev had broken ribs, and Dubinina was found without her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. An analysis of the clothing from these 4 bodies, including 2 pairs of pants and a sweater, reveal an abnormally high level of radiation. 12-year-old Yuri Kuntsevich claimed that the bodies had brown, tanned marks on their skin. Other skiers located 50 kilometers away reported seeing strange orange spheres in the northern sky on the night of the incident. These reports were recorded between January and March of 1959. However, later investigations confirmed that these were R-7 Semyorka rocket tests. It is alleged that the last photo taken by the group on the night of the incident shows strange orange spheres. A mysterious piece of metal was reportedly found at the scene. This metal fragment was photographed by the search team. Researchers determined that Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko burned cedar branches instead of dry wood for their campfire. Because of this, it is believed that they may have lost their vision on the night of the incident. The group's final campsite was located between the Bikaner Cosmodrome and Novaya Zemlya. At the site, there were no footprints other than those belonging to the group. This contradicts theories that the Mansi people or other outsiders may have been responsible for their deaths. The bodies showed fractures consistent with severe impacts. Rustem Slobodin's lips and the left side of his face were swollen. Bruises were found on various parts of his body. He appeared to be clutching his stomach as if experiencing cramps or suffering from a blow. Based on the body's position, researchers believe Slobodin may have struggled against something. While his injuries and swollen face support this theory, the lack of foreign footprints at the site contradicts it. The clothing of the 4 bodies found in the stream contained purple stains. Researchers believe these may have been caused by minerals. The group was believed to have had 4 cameras belonging to Igor Dyatlov, Yuri Krivonishenko, Rustem Slobodin, and Sem. However, the contents of the other cameras, except Dyalov's, remain unknown or undisclosed. Semyon Zolotarev was the only member who reportedly took his camera with him when fleeing the tent on the night of the incident. Yuri Krivonishenko's nose was partially missing. There are claims that Yuri Doroshenko had a personal diary separate from the group's. It was found in the tent along with the group's journal, and it is said that he wrote the exact reason behind the disaster. Semyon Alexandrovich Zolotarev was the oldest member of the group. While the other team members were students, he had been a soldier in the Red Army during World War II, and had spent many years enduring harsh wartime conditions. The incident was adapted into a movie in 2013 under the title Devil's Pass. Additionally, in 2015, a video game called Colette was developed by the IMGN Pro team. In 2020, the event was also adapted into a TV series titled Paranormal.
Skinwalker Ranch, previously known as Sherman Ranch, is a property of approximately 512 acres to 107 hectares located southeast of Ballard, Utah, that is reputed to be the site of paranormal and UFO-related activities. Its name is taken from the Skinwalker of Navajo legend concerning vengeful shamans. Background UFO reports in the Uinta Basin were publicized in the 1970s. Claims about the ranch first appeared in 1996 in the Salt Lake City, Utah, Deseret News, and later in the alternative weekly Las Vegas Mercury as a series of articles by investigative journalist George Knapp. These early stories detail the claims of a family that allegedly experienced inexplicable and frightening events after they purchased and occupied the property. The ranch, located in West Uinta County, Utah, bordering the Uinta and Ural Indian Reservation, was popularly dubbed the UFO Ranch due to its ostensible 50-year history of odd events said to have taken place there. According to Kelleher and Knapp, they saw or investigated evidence of close to 100 incidents that include vanishing and mutilated cattle sightings of unidentified flying objects or orbs, large animals with piercing red eyes that they say were unscathed when struck by bullets, and invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields. Among those involved were retired U.S. Army Colonel John B. Alexander, who characterized the NITSE effort as an attempt to get hard data using a standard scientific approach. However, the investigators admitted to difficulty obtaining evidence consistent with scientific publication. Cattle mutilations have been part of the folklore of the surrounding area for decades. When Robert Bigelow, founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, purchased the ranch for $200,000 in 1996, this was reportedly the result of his having been convinced by the stories of mutilations that included tales of strange lights and unusual impressions made in grass and soil told by the family of former ranch owner Terry Sherman. Book and funding. In 2005, Colm Kelleher and co-author George Knapp published a book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, in which they described the ranch being acquired by Bigelow to study anecdotal sightings of UFOs, Bigfoot-like creatures, crop circles, glowing orbs, and poltergeist activity reported by its former owners. Kelleher and Knapp's book was read by Defense Intelligence Agency official James Lukotsky, who contacted Bigelow and obtained permission to visit the ranch. Lukotsky had a supernatural experience there, which Bigelow relayed to his friend Harry Reid. Reid and Ted Stevens, a UFO experiencer, quickly agreed that the ranch deserved attention and inserted a line into the Department of Defense budget appropriating $22 million to study unidentified aerial phenomena. Criticism skeptical author Robert Schieffer believes the phenomena at Skinwalker to be almost certainly illusory, given that NITSE found no proof after several years of monitoring, and that the previous owners of the property, who had lived there for 60 years, say that no supernatural events of any kind had happened there. Schieffer considers the explanation reliant upon the fewest assumptions to be that the Sherman family invented the story prior to selling it to the gullible Bigelow, with many of the more extraordinary claims originating solely from Terry Sherman, who worked as a caretaker after the ranch was sold to Bigelow. In 1996, skeptic James Randi awarded Bigelow a tongue-in-cheek Pegasus Award for funding the purchase of the ranch and for supporting Johnny Mac's and Budded Hopkins' investigations. The award category designated Bigelow as the funding organization that supported the most useless study of a supernatural, paranormal, or occult claim. In 2023, ufologist Barry Greenwood, writing in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, criticized the $22 million research program led by James Lukotsky. He emphasized the lack of any documentary evidence from the ranch after many decades of exploration and characterized Skinwalker as always in the business of selling belief and hope. Ownership 1934 to 1994, Kenneth and Edith Myers 1994 to 1996, Terry and Gwen Sherman 1996 to 2016, Robert Bigelow 2016 present, Brandon Fugel, via Adamantium Real Estate LLC. In 2016, Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch to Adamantium Real Estate LLC for around $500,000. After this purchase, roads leading to the ranch were blocked. The perimeter was guarded by cameras and barbed wire, and signs were posted that aimed to prevent people from approaching the ranch. Adamantium Real Estate, LLC, a Delaware limited liability company based in Salt Lake City, Utah, filed a U.S. trademark application for the service mark Skinwalker Ranch on February 15, 2017, and was approved and registered on April 14, 2020, with the mark applicable to providing recreation facilities. Entertainment services, namely creation, development, production, and distribution of multimedia content, internet content, motion pictures, and television shows. An additional trademark filing to expand use on cups and mugs, shirts and short-sleeved shirts, sports caps, and hats was filed by Adamantium Real Estate, LLC on June 21, 2021, and was approved and registered on July 12, 2022. In March 2020, Brandon Fugel, a real estate developer and tech investor, announced ownership of the ranch. In 2022, Fugel announced a partnership with the Hutchings Museum Institute in Lehi, Utah, designed to better understand the environment and historical significance of the ranch.